Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2021 Academic Resources Conference. My name is Heather Mummaw. I am the Marketing and Operations Coordinator in the College of Social Sciences and Interdisciplinary Studies, SSIS for short, Dean's Office at Sacramento State. I'm here to talk to you today about social media, specifically Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I have been attending or presenting at ARC since 2006. And this is the first fully virtual ARC. And I say the first fully virtual because if any of you were attending back in 2010, we actually did a somewhat virtual conference version. It was a webcast from the Chancellor's office in Long Beach. And so on my first slide, we have some photos from that year. And you can see there were some people, like the people who were putting the conference on, were down in Long Beach at the Chancellor's office. There were a few attendees that went to the Chancellor's office in person. And then there's another photo there you can see where people who were not in attendance, but they were attending back at their home campus, sitting at their desk. That was what they saw on their screen. And I just thought it would be kind of fun to just show some of those photos. So a little bit about my background. Um, I'm not a social media expert. I am just probably like many of you who just do social media as part of their position on the campus. And I have been doing social media for our college for about 8 years. It just was something that sort of evolved. I was doing a few things in marketing, and so social media was a natural evolution for my position. And so that was how I started doing it. And I'm also part of a group on campus called Hornet Social. Hornets are our mascot at Sac State. And so that's where the name comes from. It's a group of marketing and communication folks mostly, and we get together once a month and people share what they're working on, share any campaigns that are going on campus, and just share some tips with one another. And I'll admit, a lot of times the information is a little bit over my head because these are people who do social media all the time, all day, every day. But what it has done for me is it's helped me learn a lot from all of them because they're all very knowledgeable about social media and marketing. So that's been a big help. The other thing about me is that I manage other Instagram accounts. So on my next slide here, I have a screenshot showing you one that I do just for fun. This is of my dog. So this is his Instagram. I manage his account as kind of a hobby. And so if you want to follow him, you can, no pressure. But I've learned a lot from managing his account just about social media engagement, what photos get a lot of likes and things like that. And then I also manage two other professional accounts. So I've learned probably a little bit more about Instagram for that reason. On my next slide, I just wanted to go over some of the learning objectives, what we're going to learn today, what I'm going to talk about. The first thing I wanted to talk about is just this last year and how strange of a year it was, 2020, and then now we're in 2021, and just talking about the impact that it has had on social media. I'm going to then compare the three platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, just kind of talk about each one, do a little bit of an overview, dig deep into each one, and then I'm going to compare them a little bit too as I talk about them. Then I have some tips and tricks for you. I hope these are things that you don't already know. You may know some of them. I know you all are probably either at least familiar with social media, even if you aren't using it in your job yet. But I hope that you learned something today. If this were in person, it would be great to have a discussion and some back and forth, and I could give you my ideas and you could give me your ideas. But being virtual, being pre-recorded, we don't have that option, but I hope that I can share something with you that you've never heard before. Then at the end, again, if we were in person, we would have had time to do a little Q&A. But what I did instead is I came up with some questions that I thought you might ask. And then I also provided some answers to some questions of, when I've done this presentation before, I've gotten questions. And so I just included those in case you didn't know the answers or hadn't heard those questions before. So next slide is about the 2020-2021 impact on social media. I feel that I would be remiss not to talk about this just because of how huge of an impact this last year has had on social media. In most ways, social media has brought people together. It's been a means for them to connect through some of the isolation that they've experienced this last year. And there have been both negative and positive effects because of it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of those. So starting with the negative, some people have chosen over this last year to sort of step away from social media, either altogether or just taking short breaks. They really feel maybe that social media has been having a negative impact on their mental health. They're getting just this barrage of bad news and information that's really unsettling. And so they step away. They feel like it's impacting their mental health, it's stressing them out more than they already are. So, that is the downside to social media during a year like this. Another thing is a term you may have heard before. I don't know if you heard about it before this last year, but the term is doom scrolling. So, this is the tendency for someone to scroll through their news applications or their social media, more likely, kind of looking for some ray of hope, some light at the end of the tunnel. They just really want good news and they keep expecting there to be something that's going to leave them feeling hopeful. And instead, they just keep scrolling through bad news after bad news, and it just makes them feel even more depressed than when they started. But they just keep doing it because there's this expectation that they're going to see something that's going to make them feel better. Now, positives. There have been a lot of positives, and I think that this year has also had a huge impact on social media in a positive way, and it has increased a lot of people's use. So the first thing is obviously connection. Everyone's been isolated, everyone's been quarantined at home. We've been away from our family and our friends and our coworkers. So people have really turned to social media to find that connection, to be able to talk with one another in a way that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. And so it's sort of led to an increase in social media. And one application or platform in particular is TikTok. Now, I wasn't going to talk about TikTok today. I'm not going to show you how to use it or really dig deep into it, but I just wanted to mention it because I think that this last year has probably brought a lot more people onto that platform. I think a lot more people were using it who were not using it before. And so there were all these TikTok trends going on. People were coming up with new ideas. A lot of them were related to the quarantine. A lot of them were based on hobbies they were doing at home. So they were maybe trends about cooking or baking, trends of dances made up to popular songs, and then they became these online challenges. So I actually wanted to show you a couple of TikTok videos just for fun. So I'm going to share my screen here. So here's the first video I want to show you. This is Will Smith, and I'm not sure if he started this trend, but it was definitely a trend that was on TikTok. And here's the video. So the whole idea behind this was just that someone's wiping their mirror and then some other version of themselves appears. So that was kind of a fun one. I'm going to show you another one here. Okay, so that was a video of a family doing this dance that was made up to a popular song. Um, so that was kind of just another trend that was happening, were these dances that people were making up. So just wanted to show those for some fun. Um, so the next thing on this slide I wanted to talk about is just very briefly, just to wrap this part up, is that for the most part, social media has increased in usage for the reasons I've already talked about. And you yourself have been physically separated from your coworkers, the staff, the faculty, and most importantly, the students. And the students really need information to be able to continue their education. They're at home, they're away from their classmates, they're away from their instructors, they're away from their beautiful campus. And so social media can be really helpful for you to just make them feel more connected. So that's why I think this topic is extremely timely. And if you are one of those people who's kind of on the fence about using social media for your department, I would highly recommend that you do. And if you're just kind of using it a little bit here and there, maybe think about increasing it a little bit just so your students can be helped. And I wanted to put out a personal question for you real quick, just to take a moment to kind of think about this last year, think about your personal social media usage and whether it's increased or decreased over the last year. So just ponder that for a second and sort of reflect on it. I would love to hear what you would have to say, but I think it's just good for you to sort of take a moment to think about that. Okay, so my next slide, we are diving deep into all of these social media platforms. So comparing the three with one another, there are obviously a lot of similarities, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on the differences. So Facebook is considered the leading social platform. 59% of social media users use Facebook. So that's, you know, a majority of the people who are on social media. It's probably the most flexible in terms of function and features. It has the most things that you can do with it. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to talking about Facebook. But you can post text, photos, videos, events, you can share posts, you can do stories, you can do live video. So it really has a long list of things that you can do with it. There are 2.8 billion users of Facebook as of 2021, and 65% of those are under 35. So I'd like you all to think about sort of your key demographic. Who's your audience? Most departments on a campus, their audience is going to be students, and most college students are young adults under 35. So you're going to hit a lot of those people in your audience if you use Facebook. Instagram, a little less functional than Facebook, but still has quite a few features. You can post photos and videos, you can post stories, you can post longer videos on IGTV, you can post reels, you can go live. So there's quite a few things you can do with it, but it's really more of the sort of visual, representation of anything you want to put on social media. There are about half as many users of Instagram as Facebook. so just a little bit over 1 billion, and 71% of those are under 35. So a lot more younger people are on Instagram. So something else that's good to keep in mind when you think about who your audience is. Twitter is one of the top 5 social media sites. It's the least functional of the 3, but it still can do quite a bit. You can post text. You're limited on your characters, and we'll get to that. You can post photos, you can post links, you can retweet, which is like sharing someone else's tweet. You can comment on tweets, you can like tweets. So there's quite a few things you can do, but just not quite as many as on Facebook. There are 353 million users as of 2021, and 63% of the users are between the ages of 35 and 65, with a median age of 40. So the age demographic for Twitter is a little bit older, but there are still quite a few young people on Twitter. But you just have to kind of keep that in mind. Again, when you think about your audience, this may hit a little bit more of your older student population or your faculty and staff, or maybe the community members or potential donors. So just some other things to keep in mind regarding the age demographics. Okay, next slide is Facebook. So digging deep into Facebook. Again, as I've said, it's the most functional and probably the most flexible. You can post text. You actually have about 63,000 characters of text you can put on a post. Not sure who would ever want to put that many, but it's just nice to know you have that option. You can share posts from other pages. You can share things from across the internet. So you can find an article or something out on the internet and you can share that to your Facebook. You can add links. You can create events. You can do stories. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about stories when we get to the Instagram part of the presentation. You can go live on Facebook. And one question I thought that someone might have if we were in person is, why would you ever go live on Facebook? You know, as a university or just a department on university campus, why would you go live on Facebook? So I thought I'd give you an example. We went live for our college on Facebook one year at commencement. So all the students are graduating. Some people can't be there. Some people might be interested in just seeing what it looks like. So I went live on Facebook one year for commencement, and people who are our followers they would get notified that we were live, and then they could watch the video live in the moment and just see what graduation looked like. So that's just one example of why you might go live on Facebook. So I'm going to share my screen again and just kind of show you what our Facebook looks like. So here is our college's Facebook page, and it looks a little bit different if you're more used to seeing it from a user view, if you use it personally. This is going to show you some things that you wouldn't normally see because you're the page manager. But if you have Facebook already for your department, I'm sure you're familiar with this. But you can see just all the things that you can do. This might have been our Facebook Live that it keeps going by here. This is a post I did today. We have a big donation event on our campus, and so I posted this, and I put text, and I put a hashtag. We'll talk more about that. I put a link. I have a graphic. So there's just a lot of things you can do with posts. I was going to show you real quick how you might create an event on Facebook. So if you go up to the top of your page, click on events. There's no upcoming events, but you can create new event. And let's just say we want it in person. We can be hopeful. And here you can just fill out all the information for your event. You can invite people, but also your followers will see this on your page. They can indicate whether they're going to be there. They can indicate whether they're interested. And this is, something good for a campus because campuses tend to put on a lot of events. So that's how you do an event on Facebook. I want to talk real quickly about scheduling posts. There used to be a pretty easy way you could schedule a post. If you were just on your homepage, you go to create a post and you decide though, well, I don't want to do that right now. I want to schedule it. So you would create post. Down here, there would be a way to schedule it. It says here, post scheduling is available in publishing tools. You click on publishing tools. It takes you to another page within Facebook. And some of you may have seen this already, but it's going to tell you that it wants you to sort of upgrade to this business suite. And it says in the coming months that the page publishing tools will no longer support scheduling posts. So you try this business suite. It takes you to a whole new, it looks like a whole new application, but it's basically sort of your area to manage your page a little bit more closely. And you can see some stuff on here about Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram, so they're really trying to link those two platforms together. So you can do things on here and you can see kind of what's happening with both platforms. So you can see here on the top, I posted two almost identical, very similar posts on Facebook and Instagram. You can see your analytics, so you can see how the post is doing. You can come over here to the side and there's all these tools that you can use to manage your page. And if you really like to kind of geek out on numbers and information, you can look at all your analytics, as I said, and just kind of see how posts are being engaged with and how many people they've reached and so forth. So this is fairly new to me, so I wanted to make sure that I definitely showed it to you. So that is how you manage your page in the new business suite. I'm going to stop sharing here, go back to my presentation. We're still on Facebook, and I want to talk briefly about the advantages and disadvantages. And I'm going to do that for each of these platforms, just so you kind of get an idea about each one of them. So Facebook is kind of considered to be the more businessy, professional platform. Instagram is getting more professional. There's actually a lot of businesses that use Instagram, but I think Facebook, just having been around longer, and almost every business has a Facebook, so it just kind of has that, idea behind it. And you're definitely going to have a larger audience with Facebook. I already gave you the statistics on that, so the likelihood you're going to reach people on Facebook is a lot higher than the other platforms. Another advantage, how functional it is. I've already gone through all the things you can do with it. And then the analytics. As I don't even know all the things you can do with the analytics, but I know they're pretty extensive. And it's really easy to just go on your page. You can look at any given post and see how well it's doing. And you can't do that quite as much as you can with the other platforms. So that's really helpful. Disadvantages, you may not always hit your demographic just because, the younger generations aren't on Facebook as much. They kind of used to be, and then they moved towards Instagram, and now they're moving more towards like Snapchat and TikTok, but they're still quite a bit on Instagram. So you may post something on Facebook and maybe your younger college students won't be as likely to see it. So that's just somewhat of a disadvantage. Also, one thing I haven't mentioned that I see as a disadvantage is the algorithm that Facebook uses. I have no idea what this algorithm is. I think it's kind of a secret, but you may have noticed this personally. You're scrolling through your Facebook feed, you see a post from days ago, and you're like, why is this just now coming up? Or how come I haven't seen a post from my cousin Johnny in a while? Like, there's just sort of this secretive algorithm that I don't understand. And so you could create a post and your followers may not see it because of that algorithm. There is an option on Facebook to boost a post. I think it almost always asks you if you want to. In fact, if your post is doing not so well, or maybe it's doing a little bit okay, it might even ask you, hey, you posted this the other day. Do you want to boost your post? Well, that sounds great, except it costs money. So you may not have a marketing budget. So it may not be easy for you to spend money on boosting all your posts. So I see that as sort of a disadvantage. Okay, next slide is Instagram. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my Instagram to show you all the things. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I just now want to show you our Instagram. So this is what it looks like from a web browser. I feel like most people don't go on a web browser to look at Instagram. Most of them are going to be on their phone. But since I can't show you my phone, I just kind of wanted to show you what it looks like and some of the posts that we have. So Instagram is definitely the more visual platform. So its primary focus is posting photos and videos. So if you want to visually represent something for your department, Instagram is probably going to be your first choice. So you might want to think about photos and graphics and, or screenshots of things or flyers of, events. And so that's going to be what you're probably going to be using Instagram for. You can do some text. So each photo does have a caption and you can write quite a bit of text. I don't actually know what the character limit is, but it's pretty high. So you can post the caption. And the thing to keep in mind though is that if someone is looking on your Instagram on their phone, as they scroll through their feed, they're only going to see the first like 2 lines of the text. So even though you can write a whole bunch, don't put like the most important information at the bottom, or at least do something at the top to sort of grab their attention, and it's going to make them want to click on that post so they can read all the information. So that's just something good to keep in mind, that they're not going to see the entire caption as they scroll through Instagram. You can see from this post that you're able to tag other accounts. So I've tagged our Sac State alumni department here. I've put hashtags. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the use of hashtags, but hashtags are pretty big for Instagram and Twitter, not so much for Facebook. So that's what a post looks like. You can do stories. So we actually have a story right now. And if you see the logo and it has this colored circle around it, that means there's an active story. Stories are only up for 24 hours. So stories kind of came from the popularity of Snapchat. And it's the same idea. It's like a string of photos or videos that are all put together and they become your story. And you can, I'm going to show you this one here. So you can put things on the picture, like little graphics, and you can see it's not up there very long. But if I had several of those all together, it could be, a couple minutes long of a story. And so that's one thing I wanted to show you. You can do IGTV. So if you were to post a video on a post, it's only going to allow you to do 60 seconds. So if you have a longer video, you can do this IGTV. So I'm going to show you here. We have just one video right now, but it's a post we did a while back, just kind of telling students how to find classes. And you can see down here that it's 5 minutes long. So if you want to show a longer video, then IGTV is the way to do that. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about Instagram. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back to my presentation. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again to show you one more thing about Instagram. So one more thing I want to show you is Reels. And so Reels, we don't have any Reels for our department. So I pulled up another account here. This is our Wellness Center at Sac State, and they have some Reels on their page, but Reels, so like stories kind of came from Snapchat, Reels came from TikTok. So TikTok they're kind of like stories, but they're just a little bit different. They're usually video put to some sort of music or dub over of audio, and they're really big on trends. So actually, the reel I'm going to show you was based on a TikTok trend from this last year. There was this guy who was riding a skateboard, listening to a Fleetwood Mac song, drinking ocean spray. I don't really understand, but our wellness center recreated it. So I just wanted to show that to you real quick, just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so you kind of get the idea there. So that's what Reels is. So I think I've pretty much showed you most of the features. The other thing I want to show you real quick is just about doing links. So I mentioned you can do text on a caption, but you can't do a live hyperlink in a caption. You can certainly spell it out, and someone would have to retype it into a browser, or maybe they can copy and paste it. But if you want a live clickable link, you have to put that in your profile, and you're only allowed one link. And so a lot of times people will put in their caption, you know, check out this event, the link is in my profile. And so both of the accounts here I have pulled up, both our main Sac State and the Wellness Center, have a link here, but you'll notice it says link tree. So this is sort of the way to get around just being able to have one link. So if you want multiple links that people can access, you can use this sort of application called Linktree. There's also one called Link in Profile. So if you were to click on this, it takes you to another page, and this page has several links on it. So that's the way you can get around using just one link on your profile. You want people to have access to several links, you can use this link tree. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, go back to my presentation. Okay, scheduling posts. So I showed you how to schedule posts in Facebook by using the Business Suite. Unfortunately, you can't schedule posts as easily in Instagram. You have to use an outside application or social media management tool. And I've put some here on my PowerPoint. One of them is called Hootsuite. Another one is called Buffer. Another one is called Sprout Social. I haven't used any of these personally because I believe they cost money. I think you have to pay for a subscription or something like that. So I've just heard that these are really good. And what you can do through these is manage your social media, but specifically you can schedule out posts so you don't have to do it in the moment. This would be really handy for you if you do post a lot, or if you need to post something on a weekend and you don't work on the weekends. Um, that way there can be posting happening at any time based on what you schedule, and you don't have to be there to actually do it. But again, you'd have to have money in your marketing budget to do that. And the last thing on this slide I want to talk about is just, again, the advantages and disadvantages of Instagram. So the advantage of Instagram is how much it's used. It's the second highest used platform out of the three that I'm talking about today. And it might be better for you if your target audience is college students, because again, it's mostly young adults and millennials that are on Instagram. So you're going to hit your target audience if your audience is young people. It's also a lot easier to reach your followers. Instagram doesn't have that weird algorithm that Facebook does. So it's pretty much, it seems to me at least, that it's based on whatever it comes up next in terms of the timeline. So if you posted at 12 o'clock that day and someone's looking at 1 o'clock, they're going to see it, pretty quickly in their feed. So it's a lot easier to reach your followers. Disadvantages: there are less ways to use it compared to Facebook. So some limitations in terms of how much you can do with it. Like, you can't put an event on Instagram. You can just announce your event or put a flyer up. And the fact that you can't schedule posts, but you can use one of those other programs that I mentioned previously. Okay, next slide is Twitter. So Twitter is a little bit less functional than the other three, but there are definitely some things you can do with it. You can do text, but there is a character limit. The character limit is 280 characters. So you're not going to be posting really long posts on Twitter. You're going to have to either shorten your post or maybe specifically use Twitter just for something real short and quick to get out there. But you can post photos, you can post links, you can like other tweets, you can retweet, which is kind of like sharing, you can comment on other people's tweets, you can even tag other Twitter accounts, so they'll get notified when you tag them. And that's true across all of these platforms. Anytime you tag another account, they're going to be notified, they're going to see it, and your followers are going to see that you tagged someone, which might mean that then they go to that page and maybe they start following them, and that's always a good thing, right? So regarding scheduling posts, we have the same situation that we did with Instagram. You have to use something like one of those social media management tools in order to schedule a post. You can't do it like you can do on Facebook. So that's the downside. Advantages: again, Twitter is very highly used. It's the top 5 in the top 5 social media websites. It's a lot easier to reach your followers again than Facebook because they don't have the weird algorithm. And the disadvantages are that you may not reach as much of your target audience. Again, if your audience is college students or young adults, there is an older demographic using Twitter. And another disadvantage is the character limit. Now, there is one way to help with this character limit. So I'm going to share my screen and show you something. So here is our Twitter page, which I wanted to show you. And you might have seen this already when I showed you our other account, but you can see this bit.ly or bit.ly link right here. So this actually takes you somewhere. It's a web link. So this is taking us to our donor page. So I'm going to go back here, and sometimes links are really, really long. I know our campus just moved to this new way of doing URLs where they have they spell out like the entire department name, and it's just a really long link. So you can use a URL shortener, and I'm going to show you one here. So this is bit.ly, that's the one I used. And here's an example of a really long link. So this is for our Student Success Center in our college. So you can see it's like, Sac State, and then college, and then our college name, which is already incredibly long, and then Student Success Center. So you can put your link here, you click shorten, and then it's going to give you this much, much shorter link. And you can use this on Twitter, and it just helps you keep your character limit down. That way it gives you more of an opportunity to put more text on your tweet, and you're not using up all your characters just for the link. So that's something I wanted to make sure that I showed you. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, next slide. Moving on, moving away from comparing the platforms. I hope you learned a lot, or at least got a refresher on some things. Now we've moved on to social media tips. So I want to talk about tips for creating content. I know that I am often overwhelmed with feeling like I have to, you hear about recreating the wheel. I don't want to feel like I have to create the wheel. Like, I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not a social media expert. I'm not even a marketing expert. I don't really know how to come up with a lot of content. So I have some ideas here for you. Don't feel like you have to be a photographer or a graphic design specialist to have content on your social media. My first tip is you can always share or retweet or repost other people's content. So scroll through your feed. Someone else may have posted something that would be relevant for your department. Don't feel like you have to start from scratch and create something. Just share their information. They're not going to be bothered by that. They're going to appreciate it. It's probably going to bring some people to their page if you do that. So feel free to share or repost or retweet. Another idea is using something that was already created. So again, if you're not a graphic designer or a photographer, I'm hoping that your campus might have created some things already, maybe some graphics for an event or graphics for some kind of campaign that they're doing. And a lot of times they're willing to share that with you. That's another thing that group I belong to, Hornet Social, has helped me with. Anytime there's some sort of campus-wide, social media campaign or some big event going on campus, they've shared the graphics with all of us, and that makes it real easy for me to just use something that's already been created. I don't have to do it from scratch. That post you saw earlier of our donor day, that was created by someone else, a graphic designer probably, and we were just provided with those, and I used it for our post. So that makes it a lot easier. You might also have some campus photographers who have taken photos of different events on campus or of your campus itself, and they've offered up those photos for you to use without needing to get permission. So they're approved for your use. So I'm going to share my screen again and show you that we have something like that on our campus. So we have a Flickr account on our campus, and this is where our photographers have put tons of photos and albums of different events, just photos of our beautiful campus, the seasons, and we are allowed to use all of these photos for different things, marketing materials, social media. I use these photos all the time. I'm hoping that your campus has something like this. If you don't know if it does or it's not obvious, then I would encourage you to, contact your communications department and find out. So the next tip I have for you is Canva. Some of you may have heard of Canva before. It's a website for marketing, design materials. Um, you can come here and use templates to create posters, invitations, flyers. I know that was how I first heard about Canva was, coming on here to create flyers for events, but you can also do social media posts. So I click here on Instagram post. I don't have to create something from scratch. There's tons of templates already created and they're all customizable. You can use a lot of these for free. So if I mouse over some of these, they'll say they're free. Some of them cost money, so you have to create a paid subscription with Canva, and then you would have access to all of their content. But there's enough on here for free that you really don't need to pay for it. But it sort of depends on how much you would be using it. So you can pick one of these designs. You can customize it, as I've said. You can change the colors. You can change some of the graphics. You can change the text and just make it your own. And then you can use this for your social media posts. So that's just a really great tool for you that I hope you use. So back to my presentation. Another thing I want to talk about real quick is photos. So let's say you're not using something like Canva, but you're just creating some sort of post or content for your social media, and you need a photo of something, and you think, oh, I'll just Google it. I'll just go to Google Images and find the photo that I want. Maybe I want a group of students sitting on the grass eating lunch. I'll just Google that and something will come up. So you have to be very careful with that. There is a lot of photos out there for various reasons, and whoever created that photo or took that photo has rights to that image, and it's copyrighted. So you can imagine what would happen if you used that photo and someone found out and you didn't pay for it or you didn't give them credit. So I would highly recommend that you don't use Google Images. There are plenty of websites where you can get copyright-free photos and not have to worry about getting in trouble. There are paid ones, there are free ones. So it depends on how much you're going to be using photos. You could consider paying for a subscription if you're going to be using them a lot and you have a budget for that. So I'm going to show you one of the sites real quick. So this is Shutterstock. So you, I think, can get a free trial with them, but this is a paid subscription website for images. And so you can see this photo here. It has this watermark on it. So obviously, like, you wouldn't want to use it with this watermark. So once you've paid for the photo or paid for a subscription, they'll take that watermark off and then you can use the photos. And there's usually different pricing levels. So you can get, 5 photos a month or 10 photos a month. So just sort of depends on your budget. So just wanted to show you that. I'm going to stop sharing. And lastly, there are several free websites you can use for photos, and you don't have to pay for them. You won't get in trouble. I've listed them here on my PowerPoint. So Pixabay, Unsplash, Pexels, those are just 3 that I know about, and they have so many photos and you can download them for free. And they do request sometimes that out of courtesy you give credit, but you don't have to. You're not going to get in trouble if you don't. You may have noticed on my PowerPoint today that I've had several photos and I've given a tiny little photo courtesy caption. That's partially just for you for reference so you know where I got those photos. So you're like, wow, this photo's really great. Where might I find that? Oh, look, on this slide, it says I got it from Unsplash. So that's helpful for you. But then I also just want to try to do my part and give credit where credit's due and just say where I got that photo. So wanted to definitely give you that resource. My next slide is another set of tips. So this is tips for better engagement. So these are pretty general across all platforms. Doing these things are going to help you get more followers, help you get more engagement with your followers. So the first thing I have here are photos. Photos are always a hit. I know that I said if you're doing a photo, Instagram is kind of your platform, but if you do a photo on Facebook, I almost promise you, you're going to get more likes and engagement with that post than if it was just text. I've noticed that myself. Anytime I post a photo, I definitely get more engagement with the post on Facebook. And there seems to also be something about photos with people in them. It just grabs people's attention. They just like photos of people. And so I think even photos of just pretty landscapes or, so maybe something that's pretty on your campus. I definitely encourage you to try to use photos as much as you can. Hashtags are another thing that are available to use across all platforms. I would say they're probably the least used and popular on Facebook. They're really big on Instagram, really big on Twitter. You've probably heard about something trending on Twitter at any given time or day, and that's usually because of hashtags. So people put a post and they do hashtag 2020 election, and it's going to show all the posts for the 2020 election. So it's almost like Googling something. You want to see all the articles about a given topic. Well, search for the hashtag and you're going to find what you want. Tagging, um, tag other accounts as much as you can. It just really helps create community. It will bring them followers. It may bring you followers. And likes. So tagging is something that's really good to do. The frequency of posting, I would say in general, post as often as you can. Um, the more you post, the more you're going to be relevant to everyone who would potentially see your account or your posts. So post often. And following other accounts. Definitely follow other accounts. It's kind of this unspoken courtesy that if you follow someone, they'll probably follow you back. And the more followers you have, the more engagement you'll get, and so on. It's all connected. It also helps build more community. And the last thing I put on here is boosting. So I've talked a little bit about that. And obviously you need money to do that, but it is something that's going to bring more engagement with your post. I mean, they pretty much guarantee it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be charging you. So now we are nearing the end. This is the section where I would have opened it up for questions and would have loved to have heard from all of you. But again, I am just going to post some questions here that I thought of and questions that I've received before. So the first one is, when would you consider using one platform over another, specifically with the ones that I've talked about today? Or should you use them all of the time? I would say, this is up to you. Again, I would love to have heard from all of you and what you would have had to say about this, but I would consider posting on all your platforms as much as you can. And on Instagram, you might be wondering, what's the difference between a post versus a story versus a reel? Or more specifically, why would I do one of those over another? Or when should I do a post? Or when should I do a story? How do I know which one to do at any given time? So let me give you that information as much as I know. I would say, generally speaking, a post is like your finished portfolio. It's your finished, polished version of whatever you want to represent to your followers. It's probably going to be on your page permanently. Of course, you can always delete a post, but it's sort of like, this is what represents us. This is what I want you to see when you come to our page. A story is more of like a snap and go. It's like this raw, uncurated way of connecting with your audience. So it might be more something like an announcement for something that's happening that day. Or it may also be used as a way to draw people in to your account. So if you've been on the application on your phone for Instagram, you may have noticed all the stories of everyone that you follow go along the top. So people are going to see that before they see your post, because your post may be buried down pretty far on their feed. So they may click on the story first and they may see something and they may be like, oh, let me go to that person's page or that, department's page and see what they have to say about this. So it's a way to draw your audience in. Story versus a reel. So I think I mentioned before, the story is only up for 24 hours. A reel it looks similar to a story, but it's going to be on your page permanently. The last time I did this presentation, I was asked if hashtags are still relevant. I feel like I've made my case on that already today. So the answer is yes. um, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but they are definitely relevant. They're going to connect all the posts on that topic together. Um, I don't know that any of our hashtags at CSU would ever be trending on Twitter, but you never know. So keep hashtagging. If you do have other questions, I would love to hear them. I want to stay in touch with you. I put all the links to our social media on the other slides, so I hope you go and kind of keep an eye on me and, and follow them, and I'll follow you back. And that's my email address there in case you want to email me. So I just really hope that you can reach out and we can stay in touch. Thank you so much for joining me today.